Hey folks, Ranger here, and I am here doing my first Q&A. So like I said, by this point, by the time this video upload, I've gotten, all the questions from, the deadline that was set. May not seem like a whole lot, but I think for this first Q&A, it's a pretty good start, and I'm pretty, happy with the questions I did got. So yeah, and a majority of these do come from, very good friends from Instagram. So yeah, thank you to those guys, and of course I'll mention their names as the video goes on. So yeah. Alright, so the first question we got, and if you hear noises in the background, I currently got a window open because, long story short, by the time of this video, there was a pretty big thunderstorm in my area, and there is just a bit of a wet carpet in my basement floor. But don't worry, me and my parents cleaned it up, so it should be dried up and what have you. So yeah, so we have the windows open, so you might hear some voices in the back. But moving on. So moving on with the first question. Now I'm gonna go these by a certain order. So these questions, the first two are from King Monkey 98, and I written these questions down. So yeah, so first one that he asked was, what dinosaurs will the Raptors interview next? Now, I do. So of course, if you guys been checking out my YouTube, you know that ever since my old Instagram account got hacked, I've been more or less incorporating more of the Raptors here on my YouTube. But I still utilize them on Instagram, yes. But my main focus is slowly transition the Raptors, into YouTube formats. And currently I am editing the next episode, which I'm trying to make this next one a little bit more professional in terms of the editing process. May not be exactly high quality edited, but it'll be a good start. But yeah, so in terms of what dinosaurs the Raptors will interview, I wouldn't say necessarily interview. I would say newer characters slowly introduced as time goes on. And I am being a bit mindful on which characters I do introduce in terms of quantity, because literally I have a crap load of monsters and dinosaurs, and it's just on the main shelves. I of course got another shelf with more figures. So yeah, I'm being picky on who I choose, and so basically. So the way I introduce characters, now I did used to introduce new characters or reintroduce older characters through these videos called characters introductions, and I may still do that, but mainly I've been introducing new characters by whenever I do reaction videos with the Raptors, mainly on my Instagram account. And then, of course, introduce any characters through, on episodes on YouTube. So yeah. So, with that being said, slowly, over time, newer characters are being introduced either by, YouTube videos or any videos on, live, reactions that the Raptors do, and immediately I don't necessarily have a set character introduced, but what I mean by that is I don't automatically think of the automatic. Oh my goodness, I don't necessarily think of the newer characters in the exact moment. It more or less come as time goes on when I think of which character benefits from which persona, which is what I'm currently doing with the new episode that I'm making. And that one will introduce a new character, as well as sort of revamping an older character and kind of adding a little bit of a lore to the Raptors show, actually. So keep that in mind. So yeah. Alright, next one that he asked: what if Godzilla faces off with the Ninja Turtles? Interesting. So yeah, I'm sure this question kind of comes out at a convenient time, considering the Ninja Turtles and Mutant Mayhem is gonna come out, and I'll more likely check that one out. I think it looks pretty good, considering it continue with the sort of the style that is being carried over with the Spider-Verse films. So yeah, so what if Godzilla face? The thing is that my knowledge on Ninja Turtles, or more or less my relationship with Ninja Turtles, is kind of basic, I want to say. Like, I didn't necessarily grew up with them. The first real time I really got invested with Ninja Turtles was with the 2014 Michael Bay movie, which, I'll be honest, I did actually enjoy, and I still kind of do enjoy. I know a lot of people don't like it and all that, but I find it a guilty pleasure of mine, honestly. But so honestly, I think it kind of comes down to really which version of the characters you're really pitting against, and that goes with both Godzilla and Ninja Turtles, because I am aware that Ninja Turtles have gone through radical changes, in terms of characters and even powers, ever since the original series back in the 80s. And of course, Godzilla, with over 30 movies, he's gonna have different incarnations, as well as incarnations in other media. But yeah, so randomly choosing. So maybe, off the top of my head, let's say if I were to pit, let's say maybe the Turtles from maybe the Michael Bay movie, let's say, and let's just go with one of the more popular ones. Let's go with MonsterVerse Godzilla. Yeah, with that, definitely Godzilla from the MonsterVerse would definitely kick the Turtles' ass, honestly. And I've yet to check out Out of the Shadows, the sequel, and from what I've heard, it's not exactly the greatest. So, may not be too interested to check that one out just yet. So let's say if I were to pit, let's say the Michael Bay Ninja Turtles with 2014 Godzilla, considering both are Hollywood adaptations of the characters. So yeah, I would say that maybe the Turtles would kind of do kind of what Godzilla's auxiliary of atomic breath and his powers and all that. But for sure, I think Godzilla would gain the upper hand. I am aware that I think the Turtles from the Rise from the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, I think those incarnations of the Turtles had more of a mythical powers and something like that. That's what I'm aware. So maybe those guys would be kind of a more fair chance with any Godzilla, but I'm not sure. Because like I said, my knowledge of Ninja Turtles is pretty basic, if I'm to be honest. So yeah, and it would be fitting if maybe the two could get a crossover. I mean, immediately some would kind of cross over the Ninja Turtles with Gamera. I mean, come on, a giant turtle with Ninja Turtles, that'd be a perfect fit. But but yeah, considering that recently that Godzilla's been fighting Power Rangers, and he and Kong are going to face against the Justice League, which I'm definitely looking towards that one in comic form. So yeah, who knows? Toho has definitely been being more experimental with the rights to Godzilla. So yeah, so there's that. Alright, so the next one comes from Gojira Man 2005. Now, this is the only question he asked, and he asked, what is your first Godzilla movie and figure? So, okay, first. Now, I mainly talk about my first Godzilla movie and figure a little bit more on my Instagram account, but, this is probably my first time talking about it here on YouTube, so anyone who is, curious, who only watch my YouTube videos. But anyway, so first Godzilla movie, so most of my buddies knows that my first Godzilla movie was Mothra vs. Godzilla, aka Godzilla vs. The Thing. And I should mention that it is the US dub, which is Godzilla vs. The Thing. So the American, edit of, Mothra vs. Godzilla. But yeah, that was the movie that introduced me to Godzilla, because my mom, she told me that she used to watch a lot of the older movies when she was, very little. So, she was really into, Godzilla and, well, mainly Mothra. I mean, it makes sense, a female kaiju. So, she was intrigued by, Mothra and, of course, the Shobi Jin's song. So, yeah, so one day she was, and this was during a time when, like, way back when Netflix was still kind of new, where actually a lot of the older Godzilla movies were actually available on Netflix. So, she decided to check out, Mothra vs. Godzilla on there, and, I decided to join her on watching it, and ever since then, I was glued to the tube with Godzilla. Like, it was the first. It was so surreal actually seeing Godzilla actually in action, because I was aware of who Godzilla kind of was, but I wasn't necessarily too interested at the time. I was mostly more into my more realistic dinos per se, but ever since I watched, Godzilla versus, The Thing, with my mom, I started to binge watching, a lot of the other Showa movies that were on Netflix at the time, which included Terramac Godzilla, Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster, Invasion of Astro Monster, and unfortunately Godzilla's Revenge. Yeah, but moving on. So, alright, so first figure. So first Godzilla figure. Well, I got him right here, and it is the 12-inch Bandai America or Bandai Creations Godzilla 2004. So from Final Wars, and keep in mind that I did customize mine with the paint a while back, because he did, of course, got a bit of wear and tear over the past years of playing with him and things like that, because obviously as a kid back then I couldn't care less about paint quality and all that. But yeah, so I decided to custom paint. But yeah, so this guy was the very first Godzilla figure I own, and yeah, even looking at it, I'm getting a lot of nostalgic feelings towards him. Like, I mean, you can never forget your first, honestly. I mean, I know that this is more of a bulk. Yeah, here's the weird thing, is that when I first got this figure, I thought that this was the Heisei Godzilla, just because of the more bulky stance, because Final Wars Godzilla is a bit more known for being a bit more thin. So I thought this was Heisei because he was more bulky, but I read the back of the box that this is supposed to be the Final Wars Godzilla. So yeah, kind of a weird design choice, but yeah, this is still a nostalgic figure for me, honestly. So yeah, so first Godzilla figure right here. Alright, so the next three comes from another good friend of mine, Goji Coyote, aka Green Coyote on Instagram. So the first question he asked is, what's your favorite planet? My knowledge on planet is pretty minimal, but off the top of my head, I guess my favorite, it's either probably Jupiter or Mars. Jupiter because it's the biggest planet, and I think the red spot is pretty unique in a way. It kind of gives the planet sort of its own unique identity, aside from being the biggest planet. and also I do believe that it is one of more. It is a gaseous planet. I kind of learned that terminology from this year's rocks and minerals class, but I can't exactly remember off the top of my head. But yeah, and probably Mars. I'm maybe Mars is probably a little bit more my favorite because I did find it do find it interesting. It's an entirely red planet on the surface, and it is used in a lot of marketing in a sense, and and I have seen it in some cartoons. Actually, one of my favorites. I gonna sound cynical when I say this. Is this one robot chicken short, and where you have Annie, the orphan girl. It was her sweet 16, and for her big present, she got what else? Mars, because it's a big red planet. She loves red, and she hates it, and she tries to escape, but then her helmet comes off, and then both the oxygen flows through her head. I know, it's pretty cynical. I mean, it's Robot Chicken. Of course, it's gonna be cynical and morbid, but I don't know. That's just so it's either Jupiter or Mars. Most likely Mars is probably my favorite. All right, so next one he asks is, do you like cowboys? I mean, I guess, like, I do like sort of Western, aesthetics sometimes, but I wouldn't say that I'm fully invested in like, cowboys or wild Western, unless it's, used in like cartoons and parody stuff like that. I will say that one of my favorite cowboys, and this is probably the only cowboy movie I've seen in my lifetime, is of course the Valley of Guanji, which that film I did on DVD and for my birthday, and of course I would love it. It's cowboys versus dinosaurs. Oh yeah, there was a movie called that. Yeah, too bad it sucked ass. Yeah, I kind of regretted watching that, but anyways, so I wouldn't say that I'm really into cowboys. I guess I'm a little bit more into in terms of like races and things like that. Maybe like pirates. Maybe I think I'm a little bit more into pirates, and maybe ninjas, and maybe witchcraft things, and even Vikings, I think. But yeah, so cowboys. I mean, I guess, but I wouldn't say I'm really into cowboys. Yeah, apologies if you guys heard a little bit background of voices back there. I guess the neighbors right next to us is having a bit of a party or something like that. But yeah, so continuing on, I did just close the window just to make the last few questions. So yeah, so all right, so next. So the last question Coyote asked is, what's a movie you can't stop watching? So, movie I can't stop watching. Now, I've given it a little bit of thought, and the one movie I cannot stop watching is probably Shrek 2. So yeah, so when I was a little kid, I was, into, anime movies, and I still am, but it was really when I was young, I was really into anime movies, especially DreamWorks movies. And of course, some of my favorites were the Shrek movies, especially the second one. And even today, I still rewatched Shrek 2 a lot because I just find it a really well-made movie overall. I think it handles its characters really well. It expands what was set up from the first movie, makes this one a bit more of an enjoyable experience, and it has its own character, and and of course, being a Shrek movie, it of course has comedy, and the comedy is pretty solid in this one. I definitely enjoy a lot of the humor written here. Trying to think of one of my favorite jokes. I think one of my favorite is I think it was the Frog King who tried to find the ugly stepsister, but then she turns around. Yeah, that's definitely one of my favorite jokes from the movie, and I just find it, a really great example of really, anyone can have, sort of their own dreams and, lives that some may not, necessarily accept. That particularly going with, Shrek and Fiona, that Fiona is supposed to marry Prince Charming and become a normal princess, be happily ever after. Instead, her happy ever after is with an ogre, and she turns into an ogre. So yeah, and I think it really makes good conflict within the movie. You got Shrek and Fiona kind of bickering a bit, and to a sense it doesn't really try to make it black and white on who's right and who's wrong. I mean, on the one hand, you got, Shrek, who is a bit stubborn that, he thinks that, the kingdom and, the king and queen from far, far away won't accept him. And he's not entirely wrong. I mean, later on in the movie, you have the Frog King hiring, Puss in Boots trying to assassinate him. And then you got Fiona who really thinks that, hey, I'm living happy. Shouldn't everyone be happy for me? It turns out it's a bit more complicated than that. So that's what I really like. It's more of a black and white on the marriage of Shrek and Fiona. And also, Fairy Godmother, she's a pretty interesting villain, actually. Who were to expect, a freaking Fairy Godmother is a freaking villain. So, yeah, and she's pretty enjoyable and actually pretty maniacal in a sense. Like, she is so dead on that, ogres don't live happily ever after and things like that. But, yeah, so yeah, I definitely enjoy Shrek 2. It's definitely one of my favorite anime movies, and it's definitely the one anime movie I probably rewatched the most, over time. So, yeah. Alright, so time for the final question for tonight. So, the final question comes from my good pal, ChrisZilla98, and he asks, plan on getting more Destroya and Mecha related Godzilla figures. Technically, they were kind of separate questions, but I combined it into one since they're kind of the same. So, yeah, so getting more Destroya. So currently, the only Destroya figure I got is the Movie Monster Series 6-inch figure right here. So, yeah, and technically, this was the same figure from the Godzilla Island line. And, honestly, I don't necessarily plan on getting another Destroya, at least for a little while, because, I know that this one is a bit more on the smaller side, but, as long as I do have, a Destroya figure, I am perfectly fine. I may have mentioned this before in other videos, but honestly, I have gotten to a point where, okay, if I have, a certain figure that represents, a certain no, excuse me. I have a bit of allergies. Sorry about that, folks. But, yeah, so if I have, just one figure representing, a certain, kaiju or, dinosaur very well, then I don't necessarily need to get, a lot per se. And it kind of helps me, learn a bit more about finances as, time goes on. As, when you're a college student, you really need to balance out, your work life and, your academics. But that's a story for another time. So I think for right now, I'm pretty much good on my normal, 6-inch, Movie Monster Series Destroy figure right here. And I should have mentioned this is custom painted by me. So yeah. So next one, mecha related Godzilla figures. So he is talking about, of course, mecha related, characters like Mecha Godzilla, Mecha King Ghidorah, Mogira. So currently, I guess like I said, because I became, a little bit more mindful on certain figures I do collect. I want to say that I do want to get figures of Mechagodzilla 75 and Kiryu 2002 because currently I do, and I did just review this guy. I currently own the Bandai America 94 Mechagodzilla and not 94, 74 Mechagodzilla, and the Monster Arts 2003 Kiryu. So yeah, hopefully I can get a 6-inch 2003 Kiryu. I would get the Moonma Series one, but that one kind of lacks in the paint department, and that goes a lot with a lot of Moonma Series figures these days, unfortunately. But yeah, but I think in terms of finding a 75 Mega, so I think I have a little bit more of an easier choice as currently there is the Godzilla Store exclusive 75 America, so both a normal looking one and a greenish one. I do tend to get paint schemes of more accurate looking kaiju, so probably the more accurate paint scheme I'm aiming towards. So yeah, and it wouldn't be the first Godzilla Store exclusive figure I got, since I did got a Varan last year, which I also did a review on him. So yeah, so figures on 2002 Kiryu and 75 Mechagodzilla. I think those are like the two mech figures I'm looking for. Okay, so with that being said, that concludes this first Q&A. So yeah, overall I think I got some pretty good questions, and I want to say thank you to my friends who asked me these questions, and I'm very grateful. I try to do my much to get my word out on this Q&A. I think if I so that concludes my Q&A, and I have to say, thank you to my friends who asked me these great questions, and very grateful that I got a good amount to start this Q&A. And if you have any more questions for a future Q&A, you can leave them in the comment section below, and more than likely when the proper time comes, I'll hold another Q&A announcement and things like that. So yeah, I'm very happy how this Q&A turned out. So yeah, and I hope everyone liked the responses I gave. So yeah, thank you guys so much for watching, as always, and as always, I'll see you guys next time.